Hello, interwebs. It is I, Wullie, and my guest tonight is none other than Chub himself, Karl Stephan, the creator of Mary Boys. Hey there, Chub. How you doing?
Hello, hi Wullie. Hi chat. Hey Stato.
Hey, Stato. How are you doing? I'll tell you how he's doing. He's been colouring all day. Yeah, good to have you in, mate. That's probably the best introduction I've done yet. I didn't fluff a single word. That was amazing. It must be the heavy-duty drugs I'm on.
Oh yeah.
The dreaded lurgy has struck. But hey, what can you do? Yeah, I'm liking the moody atmosphere you've got going there.
Yeah, it's because for some reason this light flashes out my face completely, so you can't see me. So I was just thinking maybe if I toggle the moods here, maybe it will make a difference. Maybe not. I don't know. There we go. Blue.
Whoa, yeah.
No, pretty much look the same.
Yeah.
Nah, just keep it as is. And there we go. Best we can do.
That's it. That's kind of scary light from the computer. That's what I get if people see my face with blotchy kind of look. Actually, not blotchy at all. It's just the light from a Macintosh does it, doesn't it? Yeah. But yeah. So yeah, what we're going to do today is what we always do on Comic Book Gold, and we're going to have a wee look at the comics that Chub loves, the artist that he loves, and let him talk about them, and we'll have a wee natter, a good wee natter. And so I don't know. I'm thinking of going chronologically and things that you mentioned to me, and maybe start with the classics that I think we both love, with the Tales from the Crypt.
That's the really good stuff. The old EC comics. For those, I'm sure everybody knows Tales from the. Everybody knows EC comics that knows comics, because they were pretty much the best comic books that came out during the Golden Age. They were just on the verge of the end of the Golden Age, just when the Silver Age was about to start. When just before, they were instrumental in the bringing about of the Comics Code Authority, because of all the gruesome comics and they managed to put out. Well, not it was gruesome. It glorified crime. Apparently, a lot of stuff that. Strange parallels with what's going on today. You know, video games causes sexism, and it causes misogyny, it causes violence, and also that's exactly the same thing in the 1950s. Of course, it didn't do any of those things, and anyway, everything's come full circle. I'm a huge fan of these comic books.
Yeah, they're amazing. It was always the same, wasn't it? Though it's like it wasn't even like a political thing. It's always a power thing. So it's whoever wants to have power, they'll look at who they consider to be the weakest, and it's usually the children. It's what it's going to do to the children, and that gives them the power to control this medium. They did it with comics. They did it with video nasties in the UK in the 80s, and and they're doing it right now with again with everything if they can get their hands on it. But there is actually a really good book by Martin Barker called I think it's called Haunt of Fear, which chronicles the whole EC Comics horror kind of like witch hunt. So if you haven't read that, you should track that down and give it a look. It's a really good book.
Oh, right. I haven't. No. Okay, well, thanks for the tip. Yeah, I mean, but you know, as far as the comics are concerned, it's just extremely high quality comic books.
Yeah.
You know, legendary creators. Some of my favorites. Graham Ingalls was a huge component of the Haunts of Fear and Tales from the Crypt. The Haunts of Fear, I think, was his title. The one that he did the most work in.
Yeah, the actual titles were interchangeable in many respects, weren't they? It was just like they were so successful. They had 3 horror titles out there, and they all had even shared. As you can see, looking at these covers, they shared the same presenters to introduce the stories. So it wasn't the case if you only got the Crypt Keeper in one. They would pop up in the other comics as well. And there was, I think the one person people might know if they're not particularly au fait with EC is Joe Orlando, because he did the comic book, the Black Freighter comic book sections of the Watchmen, which was kind of like harkening back to the fact that he'd worked on these comics back in the day.
And of course, Jack Davis, who went out to do Mad Magazine, Bad Magazine in the 50s already, and went all the way through until I think the 90s. He stopped working for Mad Magazine, and he had a massive career in advertising. I mean, everything. I think everybody, if you had to show them a Jack Davis illustration, they'll go, "Yeah, I've seen that guy's style somewhere." He's extremely prolific, and he got his start in EC Comics.
Yeah, he's also much imitated as well.
Yeah.
I think yeah, I try, but no, I can't. He's too, I don't know. He's I get frightened if I try to imitate somebody like him. I can't do it. I go for people like Wullie Wood, people like that. I think I can get the line work done. But Wullie Wood again, he was another one. Frank Frazetta as well.
Yeah, Frank Frazette's a huge name. Yeah, huge name. Yeah. Obviously, everybody knows Frank Frazetta, and he did a lot of in the science, in the weird fantasy stuff. In science fiction stuff he worked in. And Wullie Wood was, of course, more of a science fiction guy, although he did do some horror and some suspense stuff. Here's a good collection of Jack Davis's work specifically.
I shall big you up here. If I click on the right one, I'll pick you up.
There we go. This is a collection of his. I think it's just generally from the old horror titles. Although he also did war. He also did. I've also got one with one of his war comics that he did with Harvey Kurtzman, and it's all reproduced in black and white. Although the original comics were in color, so you can really appreciate that old line work. That was so good, it's just master illustrator.
Yeah, I've been looking at those because it's a Fantagraphics. They've got a whole selection of, and they're all artists. Yeah,
that's right. No, they're reasonably priced, and you get so much bang for your buck. And if you're really into inking and stuff, I mean, I like both. I like both very. I found there's another set of collected EC comics. It's called EC Archives, and IDW did them, and Dark Horse also did them, but they recolored them, so they've got these horrible digital colors over them, and it just doesn't read like it's supposed to. They're trying to put a modern sheen on a 1950s comic. It doesn't work because
it's what I always say to people as well. One thing the EC did, which was really good with their covers, was they actually muted the colors down so that they kind of matched what was inside in many respects, because they were colouring for what was going to go into newsprint. So the mistake that always gets made when they reproduce these pieces for modern printing is they print it on a paper stock that's too shiny, and they paint it with colours that are too bright. They don't understand that that's not the way it was supposed to be seen. And you can put it on a really nice paper stock, but let's take those colours back to the way that they should be appreciated, as if they were on newsprint.
Yeah, exactly. Newsprint's going to suck out the value. It's going to suck out the saturation. It's going to not muddy them up. It's going to dim them out. And the end result is exactly what they intended. That's why they made them so garish to begin with.
Yeah, definitely. Just see a lot of people.
People.
And Lucifer. Hey guys, you've joined us. Thank you very much. Another thing that's interesting about them is they were very literate, very melodramatic, but literate as well. You'll see Ray Bradbury there's stories adapted, and so the whole idea that it's just a visual medium, EC are like no, they came at it with both aspects, so they want to be taken seriously as well. So they were getting short stories from up and coming successful writers, and so they were a lot of the stories were very dense with a lot of reading in them. It didn't seem to frighten people away. I think what worked was the artists had such character to their work that worked as a counterpoint to the wordiness of the stories. I don't know if you agree with me there, but I think that's what was successful about them.
What was really nice was that the artists were allowed. There wasn't any house style. The artists were suited to the project. So they were encouraged. They were encouraged to develop their own styles, and stories were written for certain artists. They're saying, "Oh, here's a bio story that would be really good for Jack Davis," or "Here's a story. Here's a story with a lot of attractive women, like a crime story. Oh, Jack Kamen would do really well in there because he draws all these. He's the good girl artist. And he draws pretty ladies really well. So they had a totally different philosophy. There was any publisher back then who actually had feature spreads on their individual artists and their writers too. They weren't just commodities working to feed a machine. They were characters in their own right, and that's what set them apart.
I think as well, I think they paid a lot less page rates. They couldn't afford to pay the money that the larger companies paid, but they showed the artists that kind of respect. I think Warren was the same in the 70s, so they showed them the respect and that they let them do the work that the artists maybe wanted to do, so that they could present their skills to the best possible in the best possible way. And so the artists kind of appreciate that, I think, even though they're not getting paid quite as much as they would have had at DC.
Yeah, they tended to stay with EC. They didn't move around. I think I saw some of only art like later. I think Ingalls did some Saddle Justice. Kamen did something, and I think and Jack Davis did some cowboy comics for Marvel in the 60s. But apart from that, you didn't really see them working for other publishers, although they were freelancers. So there you go.
Yeah. Good stuff. I'm going to jump now just because we kind of have to talk about something that we both like. I think is Will Eisner, and probably the effect Will Eisner's had in comics.
The master.
When were you first aware of Will Eisner's work? With me, it was the kitchen sink reprints. You see with the great kind of like double page sort of like covers that he did, and they reprinted all the old stories with the odd piece of new artwork.
Yeah, there was the reprints of the 1940s material with new wraparound covers that he did in the 70s. Yeah, those were great. No, I actually, it wasn't that long ago. I'd say I only really became a big fan of him probably about 10 years ago or so.
Right.
I saw it. I mean, there's the kind of books that you'd see in a library, and then you'd kind of like, okay, what's this? Because this wasn't part of any sort of mainstream at any point. These were. They weren't pushed by anybody. You kind of discovered them by word of mouth. You'd be reading an interview about another artist, and they would be referring to how Eisner's way of doing this, Eisner's way of doing that, and so it was by happenstance. I started reading his collections of independent work. Well, it is everything he did was independent, but after the graphic novels that he did in the 1970s onwards. Which is that stuff I started reading first, and that's still amazing storytelling. So good.
Yeah, it's kind of weird because he sort of was the mainstream in America when you think about it for decades with the comic strip, but once the comic strip was done, I suppose it was only really people that were in the know that kind of like kept him sort of like on the pedestal that he actually should have been on, because the Spirit was never a big character to be adapted into other media, and it didn't really go into the kind of like the zeitgeist. Even something like the Phantom, which took off in Australia, it didn't even have that kind of thing where it was adopted somewhere else and it took off really, really big. So it's an odd one that way.
I think it's also because the Spirit was a catalyst in a lot of the stories, rather than it wasn't all about the Spirit. It was about the world that he inhabited and the stories that Eisner wanted to tell. He just happened to have the spirits in the background.
Yeah, it's almost like it was almost like he was just stumbling through a lot of the stories.
Yeah, that's it.
Because the kind of stories he did want to tell, like you see some stuff here, like his most famous one, A Contract with God, are all based on the kind of like I suppose the Jewish working class experience.
Apparently, that particular story was also tied into his own life experience. He had a daughter that died, and that was something that was only revealed much later, a long time after the book came out. Like he didn't try and capitalize on that to try and push the book, but it was a personal sort of story that got him into doing those graphic novels. He wanted to tell a personal story.
Yeah, it's a hard read, to be honest. But it's brilliantly drawn. It's brilliantly illustrated, and that's what got me through it. It's not an easy read. There we go. I shall beg you up again.
I've got the Contract of God collection, and this the New York collection, which has city people, New York buildings, and a bunch of his other stories. Life Force, I think, is in here too.
Right.
Good bang for your buck. Big, thick collection. Beautifully printed on nice, thick stock. yeah, you can't go wrong with this. You know, if you're curious
Yeah,
about Will Eisner, get that.
I'm going to go away from this show with a shopping list. Yeah, mine's a tatty old early 80s paperback now. It's been kind of like well read, because I do remember sitting and copying from it just to try and get the idea of using negative space and folds and things like that. Excuse me. So not exactly copying his work, but just trying to copy some of the techniques. So the pages are ready to fall out of that one.
He's great. I love. The thing is, the first time I actually saw his stuff, you know, I was like, okay, doesn't. I mean, because you come out of this, you've been overexposed to garish American comics of the 90s. You know, so you are like, you know, you're going. It's almost like you're wading into a different, you know, level of water, and you're going like, what is, you know, you like, okay, what the hell is this? What the hell? You know, it takes you a while to adjust and find the quality there. But once you see it, it's like this is so good. The storytelling, the way he communicates ideas and stories is just second to none. His acting sensibility is amazing.
Yeah, totally. It's amazing that this hasn't been made into a movie or something, or adapted as well. Even as an animation, I could have imagined Ralph Bakshi making a great animation out of this, you know, or at least trying to, making something interesting from it. Again, it's just one of these things. I think it definitely needs to be seen wider, and I don't know how that's going to happen. But
there was sorry,
no, it's okay. Sorry,
I was going to say that there was a Don Bluth pencil test for a Spirit animation a while back, but that never got off the ground for some reason.
Yeah. Great things never happen. But yeah, I think the thing about Will Eisner and this kind of stuff is he's not just making products; he's trying to make art.
Yeah.
So the idea that comics can't be art is ridiculous. Of course they can, and Will Eisner kind of proves that. So do these guys actually.
Yes, very big yes. Yeah. Just these. It's kind of. It was kind of sad that I discovered these guys when I was in high school, and it's just downhill from that. You know, you're never gonna find indie comics quite as good as Love and Rockets. Hey, Jan.
Yeah.
I mean, this is genius stuff. If you read, I mean, especially the Palomar stuff, you know, a little bit later on after the first few issues in, the interactions between people, you know, the dialogue, it's amazing how it cascades. The writing is genius. It's absolutely pure genius. You know, it's so good.
It's weird because I bought a couple of the issues, and then I got you see that Duck Feet there. I got the Titan books that were released. I think it was the first collections, and those are the ones I bought. And I don't know if it's the same for everybody, but originally it was like I was drawn in by Jamie's work. But the more that I read them, it was like Gilbert's work that I found the most interesting. Not that I didn't find Jamie's good, but his was the work that I felt had the most depth to it. It was strange that, because visually it wasn't the stuff that would have drawn me in, but it was the stuff that kept me reading.
That's right. I'd say James is the better. He's the better illustrator. I think, you know.
Yeah, he's he's definitely more classical.
Yeah,
Hollywood inspired, Al Williamson inspired sort of illustrator.
They're actually quite close. That you can see they both have this Archie comics sort of inspiration going. You know, that's like my first sort of feel for it. But his brother's writing is just phenomenal. It is better. Not that James isn't without merit at all. On the contrary, it's great. But the Palomar stuff is just genius.
See you, Lucifer.
Cheers.
Yeah, I was actually going to get a collection of that, but I need to do my research because there's that many collections out now of this that I was just kind of wanting to. You've got it, no doubt. Yes.
I've got the well. It's not this one. This is the second one. I've got the first one upstairs, and I wasn't going to run up and go get it. But it's the same. It's by the same. It's also by. It's Fantagraphics books. It's got like a blue cover.
Right.
And it's got it's a decent size, you know, It's outsized, not quite A4, a little bit shorter, but it's nice and wide. Very good paper stock, and this is the second volume, Human Dystrophism.
Right, cool. That's
As
what I'm
well.
after.
Yeah,
Then.
yeah. So I'd say if you can get that one and this one, then you are pretty sound, I think, for Palomar stuff.
Excellent. I'm going to go for that then. Say hello there
Yeah.
to the mighty Love Pigeon.
Coco.
I can't. Throat's killing me tonight. There's no way I can do a proper Coco. Not to do him justice. But no, it was good to see this is one of your picks because people, I don't know, it seems to be slightly forgotten now. And considering how big wrestling is, I think people would be loving Rockets these days. You can get this practically an entire graphic novel that's just a wrestling match, as far as I remember, in one of Jamie's stories.
And there was a lot of other stuff too. I mean, they did so much apart from Love and Rockets. There was the Bad Girls books. There was a whole bunch of other things. It's a very deep. They're actually quite prolific if you think of for indie artists.
Yeah,
you'll find something that you like there.
Indeed, you will. Yeah. Talk about indie. I don't know if it's indie or not. I would say it's probably mainstream, but just not mainstream for most people in the US or the UK. And that's this chap here, Jordi Bernet.
That's dark stuff.
Yeah.
I love Torpedo. Like, okay, well, here's my. Unfortunately, for people like who are non-Spanish speakers, like we are limited to this. I think you said that there was an earlier version that was in English, but
there is. That's the one that's up here. I just grabbed this image from the interwebs there.
Right.
That's the one I've got somewhere. It's in a box somewhere in storage, and it's kind of like it's large. It's like the one you've got there. So it's a larger UK or European format.
Yeah,
it's black and white, and it's also, I think it's got like a little story in it as well by Alex Toth, because in typical sort of like fashion, they thought the only way that we can sell this guy to a new audience is to get a name like Alex Toth to do it, sort of thing. Fair enough, because their styles are similar and they work in the same kind of genres. But
I like Alex Toth, but Jody Bernet just blew him out of the water with his character. He added, he is the Torpedo artist. There's no comparison. Yeah, but yeah. So unfortunately, the IDW ones are the only currently ones, and they're out of print. So I got 4 of the 5 volumes, like secondhand in various places. But why this isn't perpetually in print in English just beats the hell out of me. There's a new book out now by Wullie, by the same writer. Came out, I think, in 2017 or 2018, and it's set in 1973.
Right.
So it's 30 odd years after the original comic book. So I'm dying to read that, but I didn't even think there's an English version of it.
No, but I'm going to love that because it's going to have flares and sideburns and big glasses. So that's and hair like this. Yeah, that's my kind of thing. But I'm surprised that. I mean, they're going to have a problem with printing this nowadays as well, because it's not in any way politically correct. These are 2 of the mildest pages that I could put up.
I cringed a bit reading this.
Yeah, it's pretty brutal.
It is very brutal.
And it comes from an idea of you create a character, but the character isn't necessarily somebody that anybody can see themselves in. It's not a character that you have to say, oh yeah, I can see myself here. No, you watch this character, you follow this character in the world that he's in, and you understand kind of why he is the way he is. I think that's what's good about it. It's very much like a film noir, but an X-rated film noir.
Yeah, it's almost like the representation crowd wouldn't understand this book at all, because they would insist that they be inserted somewhere in the fucking story. But then if you had to insert them, they would be shot.
Yeah, well, they would be the victim. Yeah, because anybody that has any iota of weakness is the victim in Torpedo. It's a jungle, and only the alpha males and females survive, and even then they're gonna, there's a good chance that they won't.
It's pitch black humor. It is absolutely. You have a guilty little laugh reading this, Then you can't
Yeah.
believe that you laughed, and you feel bad. You're like a
Yeah.
bad person for laughing at that. But you'll read it
Yeah.
again. You'll read it again. It's
Yeah.
it's brilliant. Absolutely love it.
I'm trying to think if anybody was to make a movie of it. I think Tarantino could have a good go, but I don't think he'd get it. I think he would have to try and be all postmodern with it. It would need to be a Walter Hill or a John Milius, somebody. When they were working in the 70s, you need to get a time machine, go back and get somebody for the 70s, a Sam Peckinpah, for instance, and then have them make it then. I don't think they could adapt this now and get away with it. It's that good.
You wouldn't get any sort of budget for making this,
No.
simply because people would you'd have a line of people going, you can't have that, no you can't, and then eventually you'll rob the character of what makes it distinct.
Yeah.
You'll get another failed Spirit movie, basically.
Yeah. And in some ways, maybe not stylistically, but in some ways it reminds me of Once Upon a Time in America, the Leone film.
Mm-hmm.
And that the two main characters in it are completely, totally reprehensible. I mean, if you were to just look at them in paper, there's no redeeming qualities to them whatsoever. Yeah. Excuse me, but the film makes them into actual humans that you kind of care about. Yeah. And I think this would have excuse me, this would have to be the same kind of thing.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, at the end of the day, the comic doesn't even try to do that. It's almost like watching a car crash. It's like you know it's terrible, but you're still watching, and the only point of it is to keep you watching. You don't end up caring about the characters at all. You know that Luca is a complete bastard. And if he had to get shot, nobody will cry. It's just what it is.
No.
That's the thing, because everybody wants everything so saccharine these days. Everything must be sweet. Everybody must be represented. They can't have anything out of that little box anymore. That's the problem.
Not at all. But I think they probably would humanize the characters in some way. But as Stato's saying, it's like the Parker.
That's something I want to get into. Actually, I've been eyeing up those Parker books, the Stark, Richard Stark, and wow! I keep forgetting the artist's name.
Darwin Cook.
Cook.
I remembered it tonight. I had a blank the other night when we were trying to remember his name. They are amazing. They're great.
I need to get that. I'm really getting into it.
Yeah, you will love them. Okay, so what have I got here? Okay, we're going to jump now for Mr. Bernet, who I'm going to have to Google his 1973 one. A bit of a side turn here. Let's see, is it the only good comic in the 90s? No, it's one of the. Controversial. It's one of the only good comics in the 90s to come out of America in the 90s is Death.
Did it come out of America? The writer was British.
You know what? You're right. We're going to get CG. This is like when Vertical meant something, when it was actually an imprint that produced, well, of course it's gone now, an imprint that produced cutting edge, entertaining and artistic pieces like this. Neil Gaiman's Death.
It was apparently it's a rewriting, or it's a reimagining of Mr. Death Takes a Holiday. It was a 1950s movie, which was remade in cinema with Meet Joe Black. Right. So it was kind of like a comic book reimagining of that. So that's where the basic sort of thread comes from. But I just loved the way he when I read this the first time, I was like in my early teens, I just started, getting curious about the goth subculture and stuff. And this lands, and at that point, I only had the first issue. I never got to read the rest of it for a few years. Like I never knew what really happened with it. But
I'm kind of the same. I got the first issue, and then I ended up buying the collection maybe about a year later, rather than the first issue, because I was getting a bit. I think I was getting a bit fed up with Sandman at the time, I liked
It's
it was
better
a
than
horror
Sandman.
comic. It's better than Sandman. Sandman starts off really well, but then it gets all the kind of like the Shakespeare stuff and that kind of loses me a wee bit.
Yeah.
But
This
yeah,
is
those are Dave McKean covers. But
yeah, that's it. I mean, this is almost like a common. I love the way it ends because it's such a common sense ending. It is such a beautiful ending. It's the perfect graphic novel it was the perfect miniseries.
yeah,
And he never did better than that. He just
no,
didn't.
he did a follow up as well, didn't he?
Yeah, the follow up wasn't any good.
No,
I'm
it's
sorry.
one of these things where it's like, you don't need to do a follow up, but the money must have been good.
And the arts, Chris Bachalo, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, but that's his best work as far as he also did a long run on Shay the Changing Man, which I really like, which I also really rate with Peter Milligan.
Yeah, that was good.
And he kind of hit his hit his peak here. That style when it really still did that really messy, sketchy, ink blotchy sort of style. He cleaned it up subsequently. He got for the second collection of Death. He adopted this manga-esque, much cleaner sort of take. And
That's right. Aye.
Yeah, it didn't work. It just and he carried that through into Marvel. I don't know what the hell he did. He did like a series called Steampunk and a few other things that just didn't get my attention. But this and the Shade stuff had this really scratchy, messy sort of vibe to it, which I love. I just love that stuff.
I think it was it still harkened back to the 70s and the early 80s when you had a lot of artists that worked in black and white, because although this is a color comic, it's pretty much drawn as a black and white comic. And then the colors are added, because you strip away the colors and you get some really nice, well-designed black and white pages.
I'd love to see it in black and white, to be honest with you. If they took what I got to see of Death the very first time, I actually ordered it because there was a local comic. It wasn't that local. You had to order my comic books through a comic book shop located in another city, and they used to send out these little not preview catalogs, but little order catalogs, and it had a few pages that weren't colored out of this Death series, and they looked absolutely amazing. And some promo art, everything was black and white, and I thought, wow, this is so good. I'd love to see the whole thing in black and white, like stark black and white.
A similar thing happened. I remember about one of the first prints of a Fantastic Four Masterworks edition. They used some of the pages was the wrong paper stock, and it was a matte paper stock. It wasn't shiny, and the artwork looked so much better on it than it did on the actual paper stock that the rest of the book was printed in. And I kind of thought to myself, right, this is what they should be using for the whole line. But of course they didn't. They went back. It was the shiny stuff.
Don't like the shit. Yeah, I don't get that. Like also with 2000 AD, they make this. They keep reprinting these black and white comic books, but on shiny paper stock, on glossy, and it just burns your retinas. It's supposed to be on uncoated. It just makes. Yeah, it's. Don't know why they do that. But
yeah, I know. I mean, the kind of style here was very much. It was like a very much kind of like a 90s sort of like it was still influenced by music and the kind of like stylings out of music, and I could even imagine them sitting with issues of the sounds and the NME around them where they're sitting working, and doing this kind of stuff. But also lots of photo reference being used and being used properly and being used well.
Yes, there was a Gothic model that she's based on called, I forget what it Cinnamon Hadley.
That's she used for the photographs. Do you know she used for the Dave McKean stuff because it looks like the same person? Yeah.
I did when I was running my campaign. Somebody requested Death, and I drew Cinnamon Hadley in the Death and as Death, and that was I really enjoyed doing that. That was like my favorite sort of commission out of all those. Yeah, she just is that is her. That is the character.
Cool. I'm gonna excuse me a minute. I'm losing Windows here. I've decided to minimize on my computer for no reason whatsoever. That's better. I can see you again. Sometimes that happens. It decides that everything should be on my Wacom screen and not on my Mac. So that's. I mean, I don't think Neil Gaiman, controversial, has written anything since then it's been as good.
No. Oh, look, I think the last thing I've read his novels. I haven't read any of his comics since after Sandman. I've read Neverwhere, but that was the Mike Carey adaptation, so it wasn't even Neil Gaiman. Yeah, I haven't read. There's so much that he's written that I haven't been catching. I haven't caught up.
No, I think comics wise, this was like the best he did. He went and did that Marvel thing where they were all like Shakespearean versions of the Marvel characters, which was okay for the first couple of issues, but kind of got a bit tiresome after that. Yeah, but everybody should give this a reading. If you don't like goths, don't be turned off by it. And it's a 90s comic where everybody has feet. It's amazing. So you should check it out just for that alone.
It's pitch perfect. It's perfectly written. It doesn't stretch the boundaries of your imagination too far. It just works. It feels. It's kind of like I don't know. To me, it's dressed up in teenage. It's a very teenage sort of comic. 1602.
That's right. Yeah.
I was thinking. I knew it was some old number.
Yeah, I like the idea more than the comic, I think.
Yeah, but Death. It's just go read it. It's almost like a long night out where you stay out all night with your friends and you wake up and you go have coffee somewhere, and somehow that is the whole plot, but it's dressed up as something metaphysical. It's quite beautiful.
Cool. So I mean that's all the picks I've got here. I don't know if there's anything else you've got there that you're wanting to show us, but
yeah, I've got a old favorite here.
And I'll big you up. Ah, right. That's your
Cerebus.
High Society.
Yeah.
Dave's. Yep. I think that's the same as my copy, the big thick telephone book that it is.
Yep. I mean, these were all obviously released as individual issues, and I think he was one of the first people to do big collected editions of his comics. I think he did that even before the mainstream did that. That's where he got the phone book definition from. He got, when you say phone books, everybody knew you were talking about Cerebus.
Yep.
Great political satire. In this volume, Church and State is just as good. I would say I'd probably say everything up to Yarka's story was excellent.
Yeah.
And then it went into a bit of then it went into a middle period, which was still good. And then it went into obscurity. It just it lost.
Yeah, so it kind of went up its backside for quite a while, and I left. Yeah. I didn't buy anymore. But, it's something I've not revisited since I read them all first time. I should probably go back and give them another look.
I haven't read all of them. I haven't read all of them.
The quality, the quality increases really, really quickly. Yep. You can see his work as an artist and writer just get better issue by issue really fast, and until it becomes what people know as Cerebus. But
that very first collection, you can see that change from being just a barbarian anthropomorphic, like a funny animal barbarian story, to something completely different. Those first 25 issues, everything changes. He just increases as an artist. He decides this is going to be something a lot more. But he's also that personality type. He takes something really simple and he turns it into something extremely complex. You find that if you look at his correspondence, if you look at his arguments with people, he'll take a minute little piece of detail and turn it into something overbearing, and that's kind of what he did with his comic. But it turned out to be really good for quite a long time. Before it just became too much, and he should have stopped.
That's in some ways that's the curse of being an indie creator. Because it's your own property, you can go wherever you want to go with it, and sometimes you want to go places where you shouldn't be going with that property. Eric Larson comes to mind. So it's a case of like,
oh fuck yeah,
it's like if you've created something, you've built something with it, and then you kind of screw it up. You kind of got to wonder why. And I think that's just because it is a case of like when you get successful with something as an indie creator, you kind of don't want to let it go. You know, I think that was the case. Yeah.
But I think well, slap bang in the middle. I don't even think it was the middle. He did Melmoth, which was essentially just a book about Oscar Wilde's death, and Cerebus hardly appeared in that. He literally wanted to do something. It was technically in the Cerebus canon, but something different. So I think the longing was that because he committed himself to doing 300 issues after a very long, heavy acid trip. He proclaimed that he would do 300 issues of Cerebus, and I think he must have regretted that at some point.
Well, I've got, after a very long cold I can't get rid of, I've committed myself to doing 3 issues of Ales of Dark, Werewolves and Vampires, not 300.
That's hard enough. Yeah, geez.
Yeah, maybe 6, but I might get there. But yeah, Changzhou. Yeah, but so when you first set out to do Mary Boys, which I'm going to share Mary Boys with everybody here in a wee second. Stop my screen sharing, and I'll share this just to remind everybody. I use MS Teams all day now, so when I come on here, I start looking for sharing buttons where they're not there anymore. I'm looking at the wrong places.
Everybody's using them now in place of telephones, in place of work email. It's
crazy. It's still in demand. If you haven't checked out Mary Boys, please do.
I think it's safe to say everybody in the chat has seen it.
I think they have. So I'm not going to go. I don't do much in the way of shit, but I thought it's interesting. I kind of need to pull this up because I do get people that watch this after the fact that don't come in the chat and maybe we don't even know. And what's interesting about your work is you can see your influences, but you don't see somebody who's copying the styles of his influences. You can see your style here, and I think that's great because you don't see that in many people's work these days, which is kind of like a tradition it's more a tradition of how you're creating the pages. So the method that you use to create your work, how did you originate that? How did you get to where you are when you create these pages?
You mean the style? The actual...
Yeah, the style, because you must have tried lots of things in the past, done comics in the past, but you got to a place where you're like, this is the style I'm going to use for the Mary Boys, and this is what I'm happy with.
I think it was at some point I was trying to learn to paint, right? And I joined an online community called conceptart.org, and they had all these tutorials on how to improve your sense of value. And you started copying out classic painters' stuff, making a copy of it. You just did it over and over and over again until you kind of got an idea of how value works, what sort of value range you should have for certain things. And then I kind of, I was sick and tired of doing things digitally. I wanted to do something else. So the next time I started drawing more with the sort of ink wash, and eventually I realized, hey, this could look pretty good with comics. And of course, there was also Will Eisner who used ink wash. Jack Davis used ink wash a lot for Mad Magazine, specifically when they improved their printing techniques in the 70s and 80s. So it's a certain look that I really liked, and I thought, nobody else is doing this. Let's give it a go. Let's make this work.
Well, it's worked out well. It's been a really successful campaign, and it looks great. The next campaign, though, you trying something a bit different, or is it the same style?
It's going to be a bit different. It's going to be 5 self-contained stories in one volume. So that gives me a bit of freedom with style for every story. It doesn't have to be consistent for the whole book. So I haven't really decided exactly, but I definitely want to do some color pages to emphasize certain parts of the story, because 2 of the stories have got these really elaborate double page spreads, and I thought it was really cool to do that in with ink dyes, like you used to see in the old 2000 AD comics. So it'll be kind of, it'll be like painted stuff, and the rest will be either ink wash, or it will be like heavily rendered line art. So I'm thinking for one story, I might have it. I might just have it like line art, but sort of Bernie Wrightson sort of heavy stuff.
Right.
Yeah, because I mean the stories are different. The one's like a football story, which is gonna want more color. Another one's got to do with comic books themselves. That's also gonna, it's nice to have like a color spread on that. I've got something that's more of a hard boiled one, which I'm thinking maybe more of a Stark sort of style would work for that. So it kind of gives me a bit more range. It gives me more choices on how I'm going to present stuff. What I really want to do, never mind. I'm not going to talk about stuff
don't
in the distant future. But
I like the sound of that, because it's like what we see in that work there. It's your style, because you can see that when you do your sketch cards as well. It's your style, and it's the way you use different media. It's interesting to see how it's all going to turn out. I'm gonna like dive into towards doing some traditional stuff as well in the future. Just going back to doing some watercolors and color pencil stuff, I think. Just because it's nice every now and then to feel paper.
Like you're working at real media. I did
real media.
Yeah, I did comics completely digitally before. But I it's just like if you're doing the day job, sitting in front of the computer, you are watching movies in front of the computer, listening to music in front of the computer, you're doing your shopping in front of the computer, and then you're making your comic books in front of the computer. It's, you want something different. You're definitely.
I think that's what it is now that I am sitting in front of the computer for the day job all day. Is I'm kind of like looking at ways to get away from it, and traditional media is the way to do that. I'm still going to do the whole comics digitally though, but the extras, definitely get some physical traditional media in there.
Yeah.
So, I'm going to quickly just share this again, because I'm trying to like shell some CG UK projects in 60 seconds. See if I can get through them all in 60 seconds. So let's see if we can do that. Just because, like you say, everybody in the chat knows what these are. Most people have got them. Somebody might stumble across us. So let's see if I can do it. Tried this last time, and then I don't know if it might have been Stato or somebody. They put me off and said something that set me off. When somebody probably mentioned Skyfall, that does it. And then that's me for 20 minutes. I'm just ranting. But Mary Boy is in demand. It's amazing. You should back it. Elsa Dark, Werewolves and Vampires, a conclusion. If you've never backed my Elsa Dark before, back this one. You get the complete story. It's amazing. Back it. Phantom, little art book from People Circus. Again, look at that. You'd be a fool not to. It's in demand. Get it. Handmade stuff. He's creating handmade stuff with us.
For a great price too.
An incredible price.
He's doing so much work. He's doing so much work on that. So much handmade, traditional, original art that you get, for your money.
I don't know if he's updated it with any of them. No, but follow him on Twitter if you're not already. People Circus, and you'll see the badges he's making, and you'll see he's even made bookmarks, handmade bookmarks
by hand
stuff.
By hand, I know. It's mad.
He's either a genius or mad, or both. People, if you're there, what are you? Genius or mad, or both? Don't know much about this one. Never heard of it. Who am I kidding? This is going to be the biggest campaign ever. It's Charlie's London's Charlie Chaplin campaign, and it's got some great work by. Let's see. That should be bigger so we can see yours. It's got your cover there for. I think she's going to do that as a poster if it gets to a certain.
It's a stretch goal. It's going to be an A4 poster.
A4 poster.
Right. Yeah.
No, it's incredible cover. 3 great covers there. I'm doing a wee book for that as well.
That's right.
Yep, a wee kind of like one shot that leads into her main graphic novel. So it's definitely one to look for, and I think it's really well priced by the look of things as well. So
it's going to blow. Quick. It's going to be huge. It's going to be the crown of CG UK, and it's going to top a lot. I wouldn't be surprised if it makes the list. The Indiegogo.
Definitely. As even just as an indie title, it's going to be big, because there's people going to come towards us that don't even know about comics. They're going to be coming to this campaign.
Yeah, that's right. The slapstick crowd. The silent movie people.
There's more of them out there than you might think. No idea what this is. No idea what that is either. Who am I? who am I kidding? This one's still in demand. Oh, no, it's closed now. So, all right, okay. I'm sure he's going to open it again sometime with another campaign. But if you missed that one, go for Not Daredevil if you call me Mark. It's going to be very funny, very shocking, and very controversial.
Of course.
Yep. And Captain Frederick Head's working on that with him as well. Mortal Worlds from Michael and Caroline Anden. I'm really looking forward to this because it just looks so different to anything out there. And nobody's colouring artwork like that. It does, yeah. Old school 2000 AD. Yep. So, yep, get in there. Super Dead, again. Peter Gilmore is killing it with the artwork in this one. That's my favourite page. No, that's my favourite page.
Gilmore does horror.
Yeah, Gilmore does horror, and Mandy writes horror. So get in on there. And I just, me, I love my old school Marvel comics. So yeah,
this is. I'm glad that they've already hit their target after the first month. So that is a bit of a relief. I really, getting a bit worried there for a second.
It should have hit its target on day one. People should have been backing this right out of the gate. Look at it. That's the kind of artwork you used to get in Marvel Comics.
Yeah, so it's totally throwback Silver Age stuff. It's going to be momentous. Yep,
Russ Leach's Only Death Can Save Us. So there you go. Not quite a minute, but I was pretty quick. We got through that fairly quickly. I don't think I missed anything.
We got more projects than I realized. We're actually quite busy.
And there's other stuff. There's other stuff out there. But one thing is, you just flick through all these, and not one of them looks alike. So individual, so different. And that's kind of what's cool about CG UK and people that are on this side of the pond, as you say. Cheers, people.
Who?
Hi, Kim. So, yeah. Well, it's going to be a short one tonight because I know you've got to be somewhere else in a few minutes. Mm-hmm. So is there anything we've kind of glossed over or missed out? Any kind of influences that you want to talk about or mention?
I guess I would just have to mention Judge Dredd because...
before you do, Stato was actually recording the time in that 4 minutes and 34 seconds and you record. We need to get that down to a minute.
That's good, short and sweet. Yeah, that's the way to do it. Here we go. Cool. Sorry, that's me reminding me I need to go soon.
That's reminding me to be somewhere else. Yeah.
But this, like, I really, I've this is old school 2000 AD stuff. But this edition includes the band stories where they made fun of McDonald's and Burger King. This is basically about Judge Dredd taking a trip across the cursed earth to find a cure for a virus. You guys know about viruses. Very, very cool, very crazy. It's just a surreal death fest of a book. Anyway, so this was re-released not too long ago. With the band issues and things reinstated, so you can see Ronald McDonald and all his glory in the front, done by Mick McMahon. Judge Dredd has just been it's been like a mainstay. I've read that as long as I can remember too. I'd say not as long as I can remember. It's not the first comics I read, but it's always been since I'd say primary school. It's just getting into high school. Yeah, that's always been there.
Yeah. That was kind of like I read it from issue 1. So it's like the way it worked in the UK then was like you read whatever comics were coming out. So you read Battle, you read Action, and then you read 2000. Whatever new one came out, you just bought it and read it. And thankfully with the IPC comics, one was better than the one that came before. They just get better and better with each comic that they brought out. And 2000 AD was like the pinnacle of what they could do for like a weekly boys comic at that time.
Yeah, they figured out that all the violence and debauchery they couldn't put in action, they put in 2000 AD because they just had to set it in the future and people wouldn't notice. The censors
Exactly.
wouldn't think it was as bad.
Exactly, and they got away with it for the most part. People were just upset because they'd changed Dan Dare. I loved what they did to Dan Dare. Got to say. Well, that's us then, because I know you've got to be somewhere else right now, so I'll just quickly wrap up what we're doing here. Big thanks to Chubb for joining me tonight. We need to do this again some night and talk about some more comics. I'll be back in 2 weeks' time, hopefully without the lurgy. Sorry about the voice tonight, guys. I'll be back in 2 weeks' time with Stato, and we're going to be looking at Dracula films. Like, this is probably going to be an epic stream, much like the Freddy one. Actually, we'll be back in a week's time doing that, what we're talking about. We'll be back in 2 weeks' time with Peter Gilmore, talking about the kind of comics that he loves. But next week it's going to be me and Stato talking about Dracula. I need to go and have a lie down and take some drugs or something and then go to sleep. Thanks very much, Chubb, for joining me tonight. And thanks to everybody that's turned up in the chat and anybody that's watching. Please like it and subscribe and all that stuff.
And ring the bell. Thanks. Yeah, thanks for having me on, and thanks for battling through the lurgy to make this happen.
No problem. It's always a pleasure. Cheers, mate.